Just in case you don't connect with the student. And let's take a look and see how I'm loading MATLAB onto this computer. I just installed this computer at the end of last semester, kind of, or when was it? In the middle of last semester? Anyway. Shoot. Need to fix something really quick before I can load it, apparently. Account. Activated computers. That was a long time ago. Image products. My teacher. New download. Install, activate. Activate. Deactivate. Manual deactivation. Whatever. Okay, done. Now let's do this. Okay, so all of you are going to have to load MATLAB. So how many of you have a laptop that you can use for this class, or a desktop, some kind of computer? Raise your hand, please. You guys back there, you all, okay. So everybody's got one. We're good to go. Okay. And you can all add things to your computer, like you have administrative rights and everything. You can put a program on it. Sometimes if you're borrowing a computer or using somebody else's computer, that's not really an option. Because you're going to need to load MATLAB onto your computer. Now, hopefully that did. It did. Okay, here we go. So we've got MATLAB in here. I'm using a slightly older version, 2018, just because I can't remember what happened last year, but I don't think I had anybody taking this class last year. So I ended up not even renewing my license. So I'm using an old license, and I'll probably update to the new license, the newest version here this week or next week. I would recommend that when you come to this class that you bring your laptop with you. Does anybody not have a laptop? You don't have a laptop, just a desktop? Then you don't have a laptop, just a desktop. Okay, so if you don't have a laptop, I can load MATLAB onto one of these computers in here. I also have a PC somewhere, but it probably can't run MATLAB because you need a fairly powerful computer to do that. My PCs are old. But I can load it onto these Macs in here, and you can use it. MATLAB doesn't work much differently on a Mac than it does on a PC, so it shouldn't be too hard to go back and forth. But you definitely will need to follow along and create some programs during class. That'll be your that'll be part of your score for the class. Is participating by creating these MATLAB scripts, as we call them. Let's see how we're doing as far as maybe. No, we still don't have our Bryce with us. I'm going to go check and see if Bryce has sent me a message on my phone.
Just for this class, coach seats Because my laptop is almost there now. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
All right, no word from Bryce yet, but hopefully he'll be able to get on before too long. If not, we'll be recording. So that's good. So I will record these classes. I try to record them every day. I sometimes forget that I have old recordings, so that if you miss a class, you can go back and watch a recording either that I made this year or that I've made in years past. And I pretty much teach it very similarly year to year. What else do I need to say about this class before we get started? This is a class. I'm sorry, I'll introduce myself. My name is Jared Daly, and I am a physics and engineering and mathematics instructor here. I've been here this is my 14th or 15th year now. And my background is actually in physics educationally. I have degrees in X-ray physics and atomic physics, but I also did an internship as an engineer. I worked as an electrical engineer for a company called Moxtech. Moxtech makes X-ray products, products for scientific things. They actually, when I was there, they were just getting started. Their business was just kind of in its youth, and they were building things for NASA that are now objects that are on Mars now, on the Mars rovers. So they built X-ray windows and X-ray detectors and X-ray tubes that went on the Mars rovers. In fact, I even have one here. It's kind of an interesting device. Most X-ray tubes, to make an X-ray, you need usually a pretty big object to do it because it requires a lot of energy and a lot of protection. And so an X-ray tube, like in a hospital, usually they are around this big at the very smallest. And that's just the tube. The whole machine is quite a bit bigger. We were able to put that entire thing into this. And instead of needing a huge power supply to run it, we can run this off the 12-volt battery, which is exactly what they needed on the Mars rover, because you can't take a lot of stuff with you. It has to be small, and it has to be low power. And so that's the X-ray tube that we developed. And in its full form, it's actually got a sheath around it like this. But so that's what I did as an engineer. I worked as a electrical circuit designer, essentially. I was helping to build the circuit design for controlling that X-ray tube. And I've also worked as an engineer in agricultural engineering for the past approximately 10 years here at the UNL farm right across the road. And that actually is quite relevant for this class, because any of you who might be interested in science and engineering as a career, I can actually open up some opportunities for you. So every year I've had students that have worked in internships, and many of them have worked at the research farm across the road. Some of the students I've had have done unpaid internships. Most of them, however, have done paid internships where it's like a job. Whether or not it's paid or unpaid, it's a great experience. You'll start off doing kind of simple stuff, but by the time you're done with an internship, usually you're participating hands-on in the research, so that you get some real science experience, real engineering experience. Of course, this is something that can go on your resume forever. This is kind of like your first job in engineering or science. And so that goes on your resume, it stays on your resume, and it's a great place to start. If you're interested in doing an internship, either during the semester as a possibility, although UNL is a little touchy right now with the whole COVID thing, possible, but it's not terribly likely. The summertime, much more possible. It's much more likely that they'll start bringing people in, and that things will start getting kind of on the road again out there. And there's lots of different opportunities that open up from time to time out there. And if you're interested, you need to maybe just send me an email or talk to me after class one day, and we'll kind of put your name on the list for when those opportunities come up. Another opportunity for students that are in my engineering classes is a company called DTM. I actually don't know what it stands for, but I've been working for them for a few years, but it used to be a different name. They were sold to this company, DTM, that's in Omaha. And so, but it's an agricultural engineering company. They do all kinds of agricultural technology, sensors and other things. And this company has been doing research for several years now, and I've been participating in it. The guy that's running the research, he lives here in North Platte, and it's not a difficult job, and it is a job, it's a paid internship. I'm not sure if they'll be doing it this coming summer, but if they do, it's a good paying job. It's $15 an hour, and you will be hired by the company actually, if this works out for everybody. And you'll go out and you'll collect grain from fields and measure moisture content and record the data. And that's pretty much it. It's not difficult, it's not challenging. It's good experience learning how to collect data and record data and things like that. But it's also just a great paying job. I've had some students make a couple $1,000 in a few weeks. If they do it again, and if this opportunity pops up again, you can essentially sign up to work as many hours you want, as long as there are fields to collect grain from. And we collect grain from wheat fields in the summer, usually right around June-ish, depending on when they dry. And that doesn't happen for very long because wheat dries so quickly, and then they harvest it. It's just like, oh look, it's turning brown, it's done. But we do some wheat, and you can get a few weeks in there if you're interested. As many fields as you can try to collect from, and as many hours as you want. And if you're interested in the fall, we do collect a lot more grain in the fall if they continue to do it once again. Corn, soybeans, sorghum. I think we've done something else, I can't remember what. But in the fall, you can get a lot more hours if you're interested. And that goes, those seasons are a lot longer too. That can go all the way from August to December collecting grain. So I've had students make several $1,000s doing that during that internship. So if you are interested, whether or not we're still in this class and this class is over, if you're interested in either one of those during this class, just give me your name, send me an email or stop after class, we'll talk, and we can set you up with an internship. Other opportunities for internships are also available besides those two in agriculture. I have set up students most recently at BD in Broken Bow. Broken Bow is northeast of here, about 60, 70 miles-ish, somewhere like that. And BD is a huge medical instrumentation, medical technology company. Huge, I mean like international. If you go into any hospital, in any place in the world, you're going to find products and machines made by BD. And it took us about 1.5 years to get this kid into this internship, but now that we have one in there, they're interested in having more. So if anybody's interested in something like that, if you're coming from here, it's a drive. If you live up near there, it's a little easier. But they do have housing up there. It's not expensive to live in Broken Bow if you wanted to go for the summer and stay there. And they have a program. Their program is kind of internal, where if you become a intern with them, then they will continue to hire you as an intern in your summers, and they may even offer you a job. The current student that I have right now is playing with that idea that he might actually take a job from them. So a paid internship, once again. I've also had students at Department of Roads. I've had students at the Omaha Public Power District. For those of you who aren't, is anybody here not from Nebraska? You're not from Nebraska? You're not? Okay. Well, yeah, you're not from Nebraska. You're from as far away from Nebraska as you can get. But Nebraska has public power districts instead of private companies running their power companies. So, and I'm not sure, you're from Serbia? Serbia, yeah. I think they have public power in Serbia, don't they? The government runs the power companies? Yeah. So this is very similar to Serbia, where the government runs the power companies, And that means that our power is very inexpensive, but it also means that they're looking to bring in people at a, at a kind of internship level to give them experience, because they can't offer the high wages that other states can. If you work for PG&E in California, where I'm from, you're making so much money, but we can't hire somebody like that in Nebraska because it's a public power system, so they don't have the money to do it. So they try to bring in young people quickly while they're in school, and they have a whole program for teaching you how to run a power plant, teaching you how to do this. They also run all of the water systems in Nebraska. So all these lakes and things that you see along the highway, and Lake McConaughey and Lake Maloney, all those lakes and all the canals that connect them are all connected to a computer at the power plant in Sutherland. Is that where it's at? Wherever it's at. Sutherland. Can't remember the name of the town. But that power plant has a huge control center. It's actually kind of cool, where an engineer just sits there and he's opening gates and closing things and watching levels of water and flow rates and all these things. And so it's kind of interesting work that they do. They do lots of different interesting work. And that can transfer to anywhere. If you work as an intern for Omaha Public Power or Nebraska Public Power, then you can take those skills and go to another state and work for a power company as well. Let's see, what other internships have we done? I've had some students do computer programming internships with professors at UNL, entomology, studying bugs. One guy got an internship with, there's a professor out here who's just about to leave actually, and he does spray research for spraying crops, and he does a lot of different things. He has like all these lasers for detecting this stuff. I had one student go out and work for him for a little bit. The group that I work in for UNL, we do irrigation research. So we have a lot of sensors and a lot of irrigation machines. We have like a linear irrigator that moves this entire irrigation thing along the field linearly. Then we have the pivot irrigator that you've all seen, little circular ones. But we also have underground irrigation that we do. And so it's a lot of interesting things that we do research on. And you get to meet a lot of interesting both farmers and researchers doing that kind of thing. And I've had several students work for that group, our group. So lots of different opportunities. And for me, I think the most important thing is for students wanting to go into science or engineering is opportunities to use these skills as early on as you possibly can, so that you can see if you like it, and then you can get the experience that's going to get you a leg up when you go out to the university or you go to your first job or whatever it is. I want to give you that experience, so we try to provide those opportunities. And I'm also open to any ideas from you. And if any of you know a company out there or a particular field that you're interested in and you'd like to explore an internship in it, tell me that too. We'll get on the internet, we'll look around, see what's going on out there. There's a new company in Paxton, I think, that's making semiconductors. In fact, I don't think they're that new. I just never knew about them, but they're essentially making microchips out there, which is kind of cool. So if you're interested in electrical engineering, it's a possible job you can go work at. We can take a look into possibilities there. So just that's an important thing that I like to say at the beginning of these classes before we get started. Trying to think if I want to. I usually do let's go ahead and do it. So let's go ahead and go around the room because I want to know a little bit about each of you as well. I'm never going to remember everybody's name. I'm terrible with names. You were in my class last semester, and I'm still going to mix you up with the guy that you always sat next to. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm terrible with names. I'm going to try to learn your names, but let's go ahead and start. Let's start right here in the front, and I'm not going to remember because masks are going to block faces anyway. But go ahead, tell us who you are, where you're from, and why you're taking this class.
All right, Zach, I'm from here, and I guess, so essentially what I'm going for isn't even really this technically speaking, it's technically meteorology.
Okay.
But obviously we don't offer that, so it's just kind of an elective, just kind of broadening their horizons, I guess.
Okay. There is actually a severe weather course this semester, I believe. Did you know that?
Huh.
I think. It might be in the summer, but I think it's a semester. Talk to me after class.
I think you might be right for the summer. I think you're right.
Yeah, but talk to me after class because it might be there.
Yeah, okay.
So meteorology and MATLAB is actually a really good course. Meteorologists do use computers a lot, and MATLAB is one of the programs that they use. MATLAB is based in C++. It's another program that they use.
My name is Daniel Matovic. I'm from Serbia. The reason why I enrolled in this class is because it's like programming. It's a problem solution class, and I want to major in programming, like IT and everything. So I saw this as
Excellent.
something like that's gonna help me
Yeah, for sure.
in that field.
Does anybody know where Serbia is?
Europe.
Europe's a big place. Kind of know where it is. You want to tell us what's the nearest country that you think we would know?
Greece.
Greece. Okay.
North of Greece.
So Italy is right there, kind of in the Mediterranean,
Yeah,
Greece, a
Italy.
little east. Go up from there, you hit Serbia, and Serbia, from what I understand, is has got similar landscapes to Nebraska. They've got a lot of large regions of kind of agricultural regions.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah.
Like on the south, it is kind of similar to Nebraska.
Yeah, I've got many friends from Serbia. They have I think there are at least 2 Serbians at the farm across the way. I don't know if you've met Barbara Vukoja.
I think I met them like when I was about to go this summer back
Okay.
home. Like I met them in the
Yeah.
like last 2 days before my plane, I saw them.
Yeah, so Barbara Vukoja and Maria, can't remember Maria's name, but I'll introduce you to them. Okay. And Barbara's boyfriend is a good friend of ours, Zaki. And Barbara and Zaki just got engaged. So. But he's in Mississippi going to school. Okay, back here with the Omaha shirt on.
I'm Trent. I'm from McCook.
Okay.
And I took this class because I'm thinking about majoring in computer engineering.
Okay. Computer engineering, kind of a subset of electrical engineering, combines programming and electrical and a lot of different things. You can go a lot of ways with that. There's a lot of interest in that these days. A lot of jobs there. So good stuff. Yes.
My name is Jake. I'm from here,
Okay.
and I haven't really decided on my major, so I thought this would be an interesting class to take.
Try it out and see what happens.
Yep.
Good. I actually really would like more people to try out kind of these beginning engineering classes and science in general. So many people are like, I don't want to go into science for whatever reason. Usually it's because the math is hard, or, I'm not good at science, or I'm just not interested. It's nerdy. Of course it is. It is all of those things. But I'll tell you what, when you go into science, you're going to have an interesting life. When you go into engineering, you're going to have an interesting life. It's never going to be boring because it's running the world these days. Everything in science and engineering is what's driving everything today. And I'm a huge Golden State Warriors fan. Okay, grew up in Oakland, San Francisco area my whole life. And when I was 11 years old, I sang the national anthem at a Warriors jazz game. But it was at the arena that they used to call the Coliseum, and then they called it Oracle for many years. And now they have their new place in San Francisco, which makes me angry because they shouldn't be in San Francisco. They should stay in Oakland. But Oakland's like the traditional place for the Warriors, in my opinion. But anyway, the reason that I mention that is that even in something like basketball, which you think is so analog and, just people getting out there with their talents and their abilities, and they are putting so much technology into these sports nowadays. The new practice arena that the Golden State Warriors has sensors everywhere. They have something like 25,000 cameras and sensors and detectors, and they're watching every single player and what they're doing every single moment. They know how many inches every player has jumped during every practice. And when the players get to a certain number of inches, they stop jumping. They're like, no more jumping. Why? You're a basketball player. Why?
I don't know.
The more inches you jump, the more likely you are to injure yourself. And you go back to when I was a kid it was like Larry Bird. Watch Larry Bird play. Great basketball player. He was injured all the time. He was always injured. Why? Because nobody was paying attention. Nobody was watching what he was doing all the time. Now, You know, LeBron James, great basketball player. When was the last time he was really injured? I mean, you know, he get a little sprain, something, a little bruise here, and he's out for a few games, but they're watching him so closely because he is an investment of, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they don't want to lose a penny of that. And so they watch him. He has his own personal things going on too, personal trainers, personal this, personal that, and he's going to play forever. The guy's going to break every record in the book, except for maybe, you know, 3-pointers made in the season. So I don't think anybody will break Steph Curry's record, but probably somebody will someday. But he's going to break every record in the book just because he's going to be in the league for so long. He started at age 18. He's going to end at like 48, and he'll be fine. And it's technology and science is driving this stuff just crazy high. You know, it's insane to watch. So I love this stuff. Technology, it's great. I want people to do it in every realm. I want more people to be to jump into science and engineering and then take that technology and make everything better in the world. It's a great thing. So, okay, tell us your name.
My name is Logan, and I'm pursuing a mechanical engineering degree.
Mechanical engineering, okay. And that's why you're in this class. Engineers got to take this class. It's kind of required for engineers to take a class in MATLAB or some programming language. MATLAB's a good one for engineering. It's designed specifically for engineering and physics. So it's good. Why mechanical engineering? Any particular reason?
Not really. It's really broad.
It is very broad. You can do so much with a mechanical engineering degree. It's kind of crazy. My favorite saying about mechanical engineers though is civil engineers. No, so they say mechanical engineers build bombs or weapons, and civil engineers build targets. Just an engineering joke. Okay, what's your name?
Chris. Originally grew up in Texas, moved here to work for the railroad.
Okay,
Going for one of the electrical engineering degrees.
excellent. So what do you do at the railroad?
Electrician.
So you've got a lot of electrical background. Yeah, good. Yeah, I've actually had several students interested in engineering come from the railroad because they have so much technical background, but they don't have a degree. They have a bunch of certificates possibly and certifications and all this stuff. But making a step from the railroad to an engineer, you have to get the dumb degree, which I think is kind of lame. They should have like a program that says, you know all this stuff. Here's some other things that the engineers learn in school. You know, take a year or two and be done. Get your engineering.
See,
It's not the way it
the
works.
ones on the floor have more experience and knowledge than the actual engineers they hire.
I know, because the engineers have only been to school and they haven't actually done anything.
Uh-huh.
It's very true. There's this great video online, you can find it on YouTube, that has this guy goes to Harvard or Princeton or MIT or one of these big, you know, we're fancy, we're expensive, we're really smart schools. And he goes to the engineering graduation. And he takes with him a battery, a light bulb, and a wire. And he asks students to make the light bulb light up. And like only 1 in 10 students can do it. You're like, are you kidding? You've got this degree from the best school in the world, and you can't do this basic thing, you know? And of course, if you take that to the railroad, everybody in the dog will be able to do it, and they'll probably build some crazy thing with it. So yeah, totally get it. Okay. Yes.
My name is Jason or DJ.
Okay.
I took this class because I'm pursuing engineering, but I don't really can.
Okay, so you're interested in pursuing, where are you from?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, all right. I've been actually, I'm looking for a conference to go to because I get to go to a conference every couple of years, but I always choose my conferences on places that I want to visit. My wife loves history, American history particularly. And so I've been trying to figure out a way to get her to Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania is so full of American history, you know. I really want to take her to Philadelphia, of course, to see all the, you know, founding fathers stuff. But everywhere, there's so many like Civil War things, and there's so many like I went to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania several years ago, and they had like a building with a cannonball stuck in the side. All this cool stuff from like goes back as far as like revolutionary stuff. Like my wife would love this, so I'm trying to get to Pennsylvania. Well, I found one conference it's in 2022. I have to wait a little while, but I found a conference that's I think it's in Philadelphia. So you might be in Pennsylvania in a couple of years. All right, well, Logan, you want to tell us about yourself and where you're from and why you're taking this class?
I'm Logan. I'm from McCook, and I want to be an electrical engineer. So I'm here.
You're an electrical engineer.
Yep.
Well, there you go. Gotta take this class. Now, the one reason that I love Zoom, I don't love Zoom for a lot of reasons, but one reason I do is because I can always remember the name of the person I'm talking to because it's on the screen. Well, it is if I like put it on their screen. Helps me with my terrible name remembering skills. Okay, we still don't have Bryce on. I sent an email to him. I sent an email to his dad. Bryce is a high school student in McCook, and he's interested in engineering. And he's a good kid. I was a scoutmaster when he was younger. But hopefully he'll be able to join us pretty soon. Did anybody pick up the book? Yeah. This book is available. It should have been available in the bookstore. I don't know if they ran out of anything. They often do run out of books. If you're not able to pick it up out of the bookstore, I can make copies of the homework assignments from it so that you can, until you can buy the book. You can also buy it electronically. It's a lot cheaper that way. You can get an electric copy, an ebook or whatever, or you can rent an ebook, and you can do that. I think you can do that at the bookstore. If you can't, then you can do it directly from the website from Pearson. We'll take a look at that here in a minute. The only other things that we'll use for this class are a student version of MATLAB, and I think that's $50 from MATLAB. There are ways to get around paying that $50, but they're not really worth it, because with the $50 that you pay for your MATLAB license, student license, you get access to all their help online. So you can actually call them and say, how do you do this in MATLAB? And they'll sit there and talk to you and help you do it. In fact, the very first year I taught this, we have this final project in the class, and my students couldn't figure out how to do their final project. So they just called up MATLAB, and MATLAB helped them out. I didn't find that out until they were done with the project, and I have no problem with that. That is totally fine. Programming is mostly about just figuring out how to arrange things and word things in the code. It's not necessarily about having some deep knowledge of computers or deep knowledge of science or anything. It has nothing to do with that. It's just figuring out how to make this dumb thing do what you want it to do. And sometimes you just got to talk to somebody or send an email or watch a YouTube video or search it in Google. All those tools you should make use of regularly. This book is also a very good tool. I've used a lot of different books to teach this class, but this one I think is the best one I've used. When they update this one, they update it because there's a reason to update it. They don't just update it every year and make you buy a new one. And I don't know if this is the latest edition. This one's a couple years old, I think. This one got dropped in the mud when it was being delivered to me. Yeah, this is 2018, so this is just a couple years old. It's organized very well. We will not cover everything in the book, but we will cover a fair amount of it. And there are lots of different useful tools available in this book and available online through the website if you buy this book. I think that you can log in online and get some videos and other things as well. But I will also provide other resources for you for learning MATLAB. So let's actually get on to, we have to talk about the syllabus because that's the rule. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a system called MyOpenMath for the syllabus, for the whole class actually. And I'm going to, if you have your computer, you might as well get it out right now, pop it open and get started. If you don't have your computer, you can log on to one of the ones that I have here if you want to jump onto one of them. The password for the computers. This one up here is locked down, I think. But let me see. Why don't you, or here's Morning. Yes. Why don't you go back and use that one. Yeah, you can use this one over here. We'll move this. Sorry, I have a lot of projects that I never really cleaned up from last semester because they're still going on. So this room is still kind of wrecked from all those projects. Is that one all plugged in? So let's plug it there and plug between some. Well, just that, and then there's a button on the back left side that's kind of flat to the screen. Right in the corner. All right. So the password for these computers is this. Ch1 CS exclamation.
I don't think this is.
Is it not plugged in either? Yeah, it looks like it's gonna try that. I usually do like that for kids semesters. Plug it in here, and then we should be able to go. There's your keyboard. Sorry for this. I will continue to clean up all my projects and then we'll be ready to go a little bit better as time moves on. Okay. You won't necessarily need to see my screen while we're doing this, but what you want to do to start off is go to myopenmath.com. All one word, myopenmath, and then .com, like that. When you get to myopenmath.com, it will look something like, I gotta go to a different window where it's not open here. It'll look something like this. And you'll want to register as a new student, unless you've already got an account. If you already have an account, then you can go ahead and just log in. When you go to register as a new student, you'll enter a username, passwords, first name, last name, email address. Click all these boxes here. And then the course ID and enrollment key are the thing that you're going to want to enter in here. And those are right here. So the course ID is 98507. The enrollment key is ENGR 1020. And that will get you into the class. But this one actually you might have to log into a different key. Okay.
How do I?
See what's let's get you is your keyboard working?
Yeah, the password's not working.
The password isn't? I have another keyboard, I don't know where it is, where to find it. How's this, is this one working for you?
Yeah,
And your
my
keyboard is
computer will
plugged in?
switch it off.
Yeah, I tried that with his, but I think his just died, the battery just died, so it's not, maybe I can just show you. Have a cord, look at the cord. Is there a cord over here somewhere? Could look like an iPhone charger cord, yeah. Plug that in your keyboard to see if it turns it on. Put them around on the back there. I actually asked for corded keyboards, but they didn't give me the right ones. So I have to have these charging ones all the time. I have to make sure they're always charged. I thought I had them as a cord, but I can't find it anywhere. I have this one that's brand new, that's probably charged. Yeah, look, is it working? Okay, good. All right. So, anybody still struggling with something? Computer getting logged in or anything?
Said my enrollment key was wrong.
Enrollment key. So capital ENGR 1020.
Yeah, I did type login question.
Are you able to get just fill that stuff out? And of course, remember your username and password. Logan, are you doing okay there in McCook?
Yeah, what's the course ID?
The course ID is 98507. Sorry, I should share my screen so you can see that, right? My bad. Right there, 98507. All right. I've been talking all day, I've been teaching all day. I need a drink. Where's my water? I thought I got some water. Wednesdays are brutal for me. I teach 3 hours straight in the morning and then 3 hours straight in the afternoon. 1 hour break in between. All right. What do you got? 90,
No, I got actually the keys off.
Oh, yeah, ENGR capital. And then 1020. The course number. Anybody else need more time to get this going? All good to go? Okay. Logan, you're good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So once you get into the class, let's see, what is this? What do we need here? So once you get into the class, you should see something, oh gracious. Turn off my hot corners. You should see something looks kind of like this. Excuse me, too much dry talking. And we will teach this class chapter by chapter. It will usually take 1 chapter per week. We'll just come in here, learn all the stuff in the chapter, send you home with an assignment to work on during the week, come back the next week, answer any questions you have, new chapter. That's kind of how it's going to go. We will not have any exams. There will be essentially a programming assignment each week and then a final project. And that's it. There will be a couple of other things that I will ask you to do regularly, but they won't be exams. And we'll talk about those here in a second. This syllabus is actually an older version of the syllabus from last spring when I don't think I had any students. But it's all the information is the same except the dates are wrong, and I'll fix those and upload a new one. But if you want a copy of this, a hard copy, I can print one for you. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave it here. Of course, the course ID and enrollment key are, well, the enrollment key is the same, but not the course ID. So this is a 1 semester, 3 credit hour course, and we're going to learn basic computer programming. Has anybody ever done computer programming before? Okay, good. So if you've done programming in any other language, you have an advantage because all programming is the same. It's just the language that changes a little bit, right? Well, most programming is the same. When I was a kid, I learned BASIC on a computer that none of you have heard of before, I'm sure, called a Commodore PET, which is a computer from the 70s and 80s. And that was a very different kind of programming, but still had some of the basic elements of the things we'll learn today, we'll learn this semester. So, but if you haven't done any programming before, you're not really at a disadvantage because we're gonna do things from the very beginning, and it's not that hard really. MATLAB is a very easy language to learn. It's very intuitive, and I've never really had anybody struggle with the course, so it's not that big a deal. The materials for this course are My Open Math, the access to that, where you will access your assignments. You will turn in your assignments here. You will access other resources and other things all through My Open Math. Don't need to go through Canvas. You don't need anything else really. Of course, you'll need your computer, your textbook, and then the student version of MATLAB. So for the student version of MATLAB, you can click on this link here, or you can just type into your search engine or whatever. You can just do MATLAB Student Edition. Either way, it works. Student version, and this is it. Now, I don't know if they have a free version for students. No, I mean if you're a student at certain colleges buy a license for all students to get it for free. Like I can get it for free through UNL, but our college here doesn't do that, so we can't really give you that. But if you want a student version, you can jump here to this website, and you can buy the student version, which MATLAB student. Here we go. MATLAB for students. Buy now. So go here to buy now, and then and you want to do this on your own computer so that you can download it to your computer right away. But this looks like it's 99 right here, but yeah, I don't think that you actually need that one. So I don't use Simulink. Simulink is an add-on thing. You can actually just buy MATLAB here for $49, and I'm trying to find out how to do that.
You can just uncheck the box.
Yeah, the uncheck the box.
Oh, uncheck this box.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So if you just buy this one, you're in good shape. You don't need anything else. This stuff is all for doing really advanced things. For example, if you wanted to do like AI, you want to do artificial intelligence, you would come down here to Deep Learning Toolbox, and you would be allowed. It would give you a whole bunch of functions and tools that are designed for doing artificial intelligence. If you want to do statistics, you would add this one on, or whatever else, and it's just stuff you don't necessarily need as a starting student. This license will be good as long as you are a student. I think that if you want to upgrade to the newest version, you might have to pay for an upgrade, and I don't know how much that is. But you can use this version, the 2020B version of MATLAB. In fact, even if they make a 2020C version, I think you could use that one as well. Any 2020 version you'll be able to use as long as you're a student, which is a huge deal, especially if your college doesn't have a free version of it. Even at UNL, I don't think I, as a student at UNL, can download the latest version of MATLAB because they don't have a license for the latest version. They only have one for like 2017 or something. So having the student version is an advantage even then. So that's $50 there. For those of you who get your textbooks through the bookstore because you have a scholarship or something that pays for your textbooks, I think that they can order it, but I don't know. You have to talk to them, and they may call me, and I might have to figure that out. We might be able to set that up, but I don't know if we can. So if you want to try and do that, go talk to the bookstore people, and they'll call me if they need to, and we'll try to figure that out. If you're paying for your own books out of your pocket, this is the cheapest method. If it goes through the bookstore, I can guarantee you they're going to be a markup. It's going to cost more. But that's just the way bookstores work. But right here, it's a pretty cheap deal. So you can also download a free version, a free trial. Just if you need to, if you need a month or so to get the money together or whatever, doesn't matter. You can download the free trial. And when the free trial comes up and you buy your version of MATLAB, it'll just put that license in there and you'll be good to go. It's pretty seamless. So the free trial version, you go to products and you go to MATLAB right here, download free trial. And how long does it go? I don't know. 30 days, there you go. So you'll have 30 days to buy it if you want to, if you need to wait to pay for it or whatever. I used to just buy the MATLAB for my students, but it turns out that's not legal for me to do that. So I can't do that anymore. I used to just buy it through the college and then let the students take it home, but that turns out to not be legal. So I had to stop. All right. Anybody with their own computer get that started yet? No? Well, you can start it now. It takes a while. It's a big program, so you might as well get started downloading it. Whether it's the free trial or the student version, you might as well get started because you'll need that. You'll need that pretty soon here. They may ask you to fill out. They may ask you to create an account with them, and that's so that they can track what version you have and what version you need, and they can upgrade and update it and everything else. So no matter where you log in from or whatever you're doing, they can figure that out. And you can choose to not get any emails or anything from them. It's not a big deal. They're not crazy about that kind of stuff. All right, so back to our thing here. Let's see, where's our syllabus? Thought I opened it up here somewhere. I guess not. Oh, here it is. So these are the basic topics that we're going to be covering. Computer structure and function. We're just going to teach you how computers actually work. And that's kind of important so that you can make them do what you want them to do. Excuse me. I am so dry, too much talking. And then we'll go to fundamental programming skills and practices, learning the MATLAB interface, language, syntax. This stuff is all really pretty easy at the beginning. Elementary computational functions and structures and building and manipulating matrices. I think it's a little more challenging, but it's not terribly difficult. And then we get into plotting and user-defined functions. This is where user-controlled input and output. This is where you get to actually build programs that do things that seem like something you've actually accomplished, because everything before that is just type in a command, let it go, type in this, add two numbers together. It's pretty simple stuff. This middle part of the class is where it starts to get more interesting, where we can build actual programs that do at least something, something somewhat interesting. Towards the end, we should be able to get into some fairly advanced programming, doing animations, for example, GUIs. Do they know what a GUI is?
Guided user interface.
Yeah, so it's did you say guided?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are actually two different versions of it. There's guided user interface, which is I think that came before graphical user interface, because a guided user interface is what Visual Basic is, I think, where there are commands that you can type in, but the computer gives you guidelines on how to follow. And that was kind of what we did before the Apple Macintosh came out, and before Windows came out. Apple Macintosh was the first computer where you had a point and click kind of environment, and then Windows came after that. If you don't know why that happened, it's because Bill Gates worked for Apple and built their interface, and then he left the company after he was done because his contract was up, and then he wrote his own program that mimicked that one and started Windows. So that's why they both use the same kind of interface, because they were written by the same guy. So a graphical user interface is something where you have images and environments that you can move to and point and click, like Windows or Mac, or your cell phone is also a graphical user interface. So we will be learning how to create a graphical user interface kind of environment, and that's where it gets just starts to seem real, like you're actually doing something. So it's kind of cool. So there are going to be some different parts of your grade here. The first part of your grade will be participation in class. So we're going to go through and we're going to program every day. Every day we meet, we're going to be going through and building programs. And I'll be building it up here on my screen, and it will show up on this screen up here, and you'll be building the same program on your computer. And when you're done, you'll save that program, and then you'll upload it to MATLAB, sorry, to MyOpenMath, and I will give you points for completing that participation. It essentially will be, you know, where you're there and did you do it, right? Here I have a rubric for grading. Completion is 40%, functionality is 40%, style is 20%. And there, I'll define those things as we go on in this class. I mean, completion literally just means did you do it? Functionality is does it work somewhat, you know? But programming style is a little different, a little bit more difficult to define. Style is important in programming because it makes it easier to read, makes it easier to debug or to fix the programming, and it can also make it run much more efficiently, faster, use less computer power, use less memory. So style can be a very important part of programming. So we try to emphasize that from the very beginning in programming. So your class participation will be a part of your grade, and it accounts for 25% of your overall grade. Then the shared document. Now the shared document is a document that I will set up in Google Docs. And I actually have the one from last year here somewhere. Oh yeah, if you go into chapter 2, wait, what happened? Something is wrong, something's not showing. I'm in the wrong, let's go here. Oh, so it's because all the dates are wrong. Let me change all the dates on things really quick. Doesn't take long to do. What is tomorrow's the Wednesday, Friday's the 15th. So this will be. Let's just do this. January. Today is this day right here, so we'll do this day. Let's send that. Okay. Okay, so now when we go to the student version here, when you open up chapter 2, you'll see all these things here. You have the videos. If you click on chapter 2 videos, it'll take you to my YouTube channel where I have recorded all my videos. And it'll take you to this page every time. And if you go over here, you can scroll through different chapters and look at different parts of the class. But the video participation, if you open this up, it's just a file upload question. So there's only one question in this little assignment or whatever. You choose a file, you click choose file, you know, you can open a file on your computer and upload it, and that's how you do that. Pretty simple. Then the shared document, if you click on this and go into it, it wants you to read a document. So there's this button here that you read, and this will take you to Google Docs document. And each one of these, each one of those questions for each student sends you to the same document. So all of you will be accessing the exact same document on Google Docs. And all of us are going to make additions to this document. The purpose of this is to write down something that you've learned about MATLAB on your own. While you're programming, you're going to learn something. You're going to discover something. It happens all the time when you're programming. So when you learn something, you're going to go ahead and include that thing that you learned in here. So I entered this one in 2010, quite a while ago. If you want to run your code in an M file, you can hit the F5 key. You don't have to actually go and click a button. You can just hit F5 and it runs the code. Well, that's great. That's a shortcut. The different kinds of things we're looking for are functions. Maybe you discover a new function that you can use to do something in MATLAB, some kind of tip or trick that you discovered, or some shortcut that you discovered, anything like that, anything that's interesting that made your programming experience interesting or better or faster or whatever can be in here. You can even put in Easter eggs. Anybody know what Easter eggs are in programming? Nobody? An Easter egg is something that the programmer has put into the program that is usually some kind of a joke or just something that's important to the programmer. So there are Easter eggs in Google. Actually, you can actually search Google and find Easter eggs that the Google programmers have put in there. Certain search terms will give you funny things, and there are Easter eggs all throughout MATLAB. And if you could post one of those because they're kind of fun. every once in a while you can post, there's an Easter egg in MATLAB that shows you a picture of the original programmer's first child, actually. So anyway, there's goofy things like that, and any of that's fine. So it looks like, so these are all examples of, let's see, no, these are actually 2020. So they did have some students last year. I'd forgotten that I did have some. None of them were on campus. That's why I forgot them. So anyway, so you have all these different, these students, they put their name, they put the date, and then they put what the thing is, and then they describe it. And it can be just as simple as this, or it can be something like, you know, more like a sentence. You can even put a paragraph in there if you want to. But there's lots of different things you can do. And I'm gonna create a new file and link to it that will have just a couple of examples in it, and not all these ones, so that you can have some to add to it. But every week when you open a new assignment, every time you open a new assignment, I want you to open this document and submit something else to the document. And I want you to read what other people have submitted, because it can help you. The purpose of this is to communicate a little bit with your fellow class people, and to share ideas, and to kind of have that community thing going on. We only meet once a week, so we want to have as much interaction as we can. So video is available for you. Your video participation thing that you're going to upload a file, shared document you're going to open up, and you're going to participate in it every chapter. Not necessarily every week, but every chapter you will. And then your programming assignment is here. When you open this one, you'll have several questions. And the questions have different points assigned to them. This one has 70 points assigned to it. And it wants you to do 7 problems from the book. So each problem is worth 10 points. Most of the problems that I give you in the homework will be worth 10 points each. And I group them into groups that make sense as far as entering them in here. And we'll learn about that more. We'll learn why that makes sense. But here we have a second question as well, where you can do problems 8 and 11 through 14. And then you'll submit them with the file. So when you're in MATLAB, we'll teach you how, when we get into MATLAB, we'll teach you how to save your work in what we call a .m file, or a MATLAB file. And then you'll submit those, and I will look through them and assign them the points. When I'm done assigning them the points, there will be some feedback available. If you want to come back to your assignment, you should be able to click on a button. I don't know where it is or what it looks like, but it's in there somewhere. Should be able to click on a button that says, you know, feedback from the instructor. So if you want to see why I scored you 9 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10. And then you can also ask questions at any time. Whenever you have a question for this class, it's best to message me here, to click this button here, because that tells me exactly which problem you're working on when you ask me the question, so that I don't have to kind of figure it out by looking around at different things. I prefer you just hit that message instructor button. It will send me an email, and I can answer that pretty quickly. Calling me is not necessarily the best way to contact me if you ever need to contact me for anything. Emailing is best, because I'm in and out and around all the time, and I don't carry any kind of cell phone. So I'm like the last living person on the earth without a cell phone. I'm going to keep it that way too. I'm going to die without a cell phone. It's one of my goals in life. Maybe I'll die tomorrow and it'll be easy. I'll accomplish my goal. No, anyway. So are there any questions about the class participation or the shared document? Those two things in the grade. No? The shared document would be worth 5% of your grade. So it's not a huge amount, but it matters. The assignments, the programming assignments, are 55% of your grade. So they are, let's see, what is that? That's goofy. That's not correct. This says 50% viewing videos, but that's not what that's about. The programming assignments are 50% based on your participation. So I will change that. That's a typo. 50% on participation, 30%, in other words, is it complete? Did you actually do it? Did you finish the assignment? So I look for programming code for each part of the assignment. And I don't necessarily test the code, I just look to see that you actually tried it. Functionality will be 30%. Does the code run? Does it work? Does it do what it's supposed to do? And then style will be 20% again. And then the final programming project will have essentially the same kind of rubric, except it's 50% functionality, 30% incorporation of programming knowledge, and 20% style. So the final project, usually we do something like a game where you make your own computer game using a graphical user interface and things that you've learned. And it's usually a fairly simple game. The most common game that students have done in the past has been like a card game, like 21, Blackjack, right? Blackjack is a fairly easy game with easy rules, simple to program, and then you use a graphical user interface to simulate cards and clicking on things to choose, to deal or whatever else. And so that project is what you will be doing for your final project, something like that. We can do other projects as well. I usually let the students kind of participate in deciding what that final project is going to be. But we will talk about it as the class goes on and as you get more experience programming and have some idea of what you might like to do. But that project is 15% of your grade. And the good news here is that if you're here in class, and you're working on this, and you're spending time on it, you're probably going to get a good grade. I've never had a student who has completed the homework, completed the project, and just done everything, come to class. I've never had a student get less than like a B+ in this class if they're just here participating. Even if they were terrible at programming or they just bombed their project and couldn't make it work. I've never had a student get less than a B, because this class is not about, testing your knowledge of something. It's just introducing you to a new thing that you're going to need to use the rest of your career, right? So I'm not necessarily trying to make sure that you're an amazing programmer. I'm trying to make sure that you know the basics of programming and that you can use it. That's the most important thing about this class. So make sure that you come to class. Make sure that if you're going to miss class, that you watch the video and do the participation video. And it's fine. I understand that some of you have, extracurricular activities, sports, clubs, whatever else. That's fine. I would prefer you give me a quick email if you miss class, just so I know you're not just dropping out of the course and not doing anything. But, it's fine if you miss class. I've got the videos for you. You can get on them and do that. Just get them down and don't put them off. The grading scale goes from a 90 up is essentially an A. They like us to have a scale that includes an A+, but I don't really give A+. It doesn't change your GPA anyway. An A and an A+ are still a 4 on the GPA scale, so I just give A's. And then, the B+ from 85 to 90 and goes all the way down to 65 for a B+. And a D is 60. And anything below that is failing. I don't think I've ever had anybody fail this class unless they just didn't show up and do anything. It's not intended to be a difficult class. It's just intended to be an introduction, and here's a tool that you're going to use. I won't have any quizzes, so there's no reason for quizzes to make up or tests or anything else. But homework assignments, I do want us to have the homework assignments done by the class after we finished looking at the material. Some weeks it'll take 2 weeks. Sometimes it'll take 2 weeks to get through a chapter. And so if we started chapter 2 today and finished it next week, then chapter 2's homework assignment will be due the week after that, right? Before class started. But if you have questions on an assignment, make sure that you get them to me before that. Make sure that you send me a message before that, and I'll try to help you before that. If I can't help you before that and it really needs to be in class, then we'll just, put off the assignment another day or two, come to class and figure it out, and then you'll turn it in a day or two later. I'm not super strict on these things, but if you get behind a long, if you're 2 or 3 weeks behind because you're just deciding not to come to class or you're just, kind of being lazy or whatever, then I'm going to ride you a bit. I'm going to get on you. I don't like that kind of behavior in my students. I prefer that students are respecting the class, respecting their own education, respecting whoever's paying for their education, and making good use of it. So if you're paying for your own education, respect yourself enough to get to class. Right? Chain of resolution. This is also outdated because we have a new department chair. Our new department chair is Ch1. He's a math teacher. He's hard to find in his office by my experience because he's in and out a lot. But essentially what this whole thing is, if you have any issues with this class or with me and you don't want to talk to me about it, you can go and talk to him about it. But feel free to talk to me about it. I'm pretty easy on. I take criticism well. I can solve problems pretty easily. So. But his email is Swanson C. And I'll put this in the new version of syllabus that I post. But it's Swanson C at npcc.edu. And I can tell you what he's going to say. If you go talk to him, he's going to say, well, what do you want me to do about it? Because that's what he always says. And then you have to be ready for something that you want to be done about. I want you to cut off my teacher's head. And then, he'll go from there. But, okay. That's all the stuff the lawyers make us do. There's probably some other things that I'm forgetting the lawyers want us to do. But anybody else have any questions about this whole, I didn't talk about FERPA or students with disabilities. So we have FERPA, that's essentially the laws that say that I'm supposed to try to keep your information private. And that's one of the reasons I use my open math, because only you have access to your stuff there. Every once in a while I make a mistake and accidentally click on the grade book part of my screen when it's like up on the screen. And everybody sees everybody's grades all of a sudden. I'm like, oh crap. I try not to do that, but every once in a while when I'm kind of, clicking here, clicking there, it happens. And I apologize if it does happen, but if you have any issues with that, again, you can talk to me, or you can talk to Chad Swanson, and we'll take care of it and fix it. Students with disabilities is another law, another federal law. It says that if you want any accommodations, you want any help because of any particular disability, you do have to do it officially. It has to go through, on this campus, it has to go through Chris Turner. You can also send an email to disability services at npcc, I think, .edu. Chris Turner's office is right over by the library. You may have, on the left side, as you're walking towards the library down the hall there, you might have seen a door sometimes with a little red and white cane outside of it, and the windows are always dark. He's very, very blind. He has a hard time seeing things at all. He can see shadows sometimes, but light hurts his eyes, and so he keeps his room dark in there. And he also has a guide dog with him in there, so he keeps the door shut. But Chris Turner can help you out with that. He's in charge of all that, and then he will contact me after you've contacted him and finished all the official stuff there, and then we'll figure out what we can do to help you out with any accommodations. And that's it. So anybody have any questions about all that legal mumbo jumbo stuff? Okay. If you have any other questions about it, feel free to send me an email, call me up, stop by my office. Anything else, I'm open to helping out. My office hours are listed here by appointment, which is pretty much true. I used to have set office hours, but I found students never came to my office hours. And part of that is because I've become extremely good at answering questions by email. And so if you have a question and you can't find me, send me an email. I'll try to answer it there. If you want to make an appointment and come in and talk to me, totally fine. I'm open to that. But I found that students rarely do it, so I just don't want to sit around my office going, where are my students? So you can always stop in if my door is open, or if these doors are open, come look for me. Say, hey, Jared, you here? You don't have to call me doctor or professor. I am not either of those. We don't have any professors at this college, first of all. Colleges don't have professors by definition. And at least two-year colleges. And I'm not a doctor. Someday I hope to get my PhD in engineering. I'm working on it right now. But even when I get my PhD, I would prefer nobody call me doctor. I'm not a very formal person, so I prefer just to be called Jared. Or you can call me Mr. Daly, but I'll start looking for my dad probably. But anyway, office hours by appointment. Trying to think if there's anything I'm missing, anything I'm forgetting. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Sorry, this is taking forever. It always does at the beginning of this semester, especially in this class. The last thing that I would like to tell you is that I am the advisor for all students interested in engineering or physics. And I also advise students who are interested in going to math. So if you want to know what classes you need to take next, what you should be thinking of as far as going to a four-year school, if you'd just like to talk about what your options are, what possibilities, please feel free to call me, send me an email, come and talk to me in my office, make an appointment. I will sit down with you and we'll talk about what your interests are, what your background is, where you plan to end up living, whatever it is you want to do. And we will help you to find the best path in your education, the best, internship, whatever you need. I'm willing to sit down and work with you on this. And I've had a high degree of success helping students out this way. And I enjoy it. This is why I'm here. This is why I have this job. I'm not here to make money. I'm not going to guide you towards some school that I don't have any affiliation with. I don't have any affiliations. My interest is in helping students to reach their maximum potential and to find something that they want to do that's going to make them happy, help them to contribute to this world in a positive way. And so feel free to take advantage of me now. Also, if you're going on somewhere and you need a letter of recommendation, I'm also willing to write those. I've written dozens and dozens of them, and I'm willing to write you a letter of recommendation for a job or for an internship or for a school application or a team. If you need a letter of recommendation, on a team or something, more than willing to do that. And I want you to know that that is available to you. Now we can get started on the actual class. I need to take a drink of water. Since this is such a long class every day, we will take a little break in the middle, get up, walk around, get a drink, whatever, go to the bathroom. We'll do that in just a few minutes here. But I do want to get started on this class. The first chapter, if you open up your book, is something like problem solving in engineering and science, about MATLAB. It also covers that's about it. It's just some very basic stuff about what MATLAB is. Yeah, if you want to come, if you're done there, today we won't do any programming really. We'll do programming next week, but today we're going to talk about what computers are for the most part and how they work. But we won't do it. You won't have to actually do a participation file for today. So we'll do that next week. We'll learn a little bit on how to make them. We might practice how to make them, but you won't have to turn anything in for this week. So we'll start chapter 2 next week. Chapter 1 and chapter 2 kind of overlap a little bit easier. I will use a lot of things from the internet. I'm a big fan of Google. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at how computers work, because this is something that we need to understand. And there's some great things on this. Let's see if we can find a good diagram. A great picture of Bill Gates. Let's see, let's open this picture up. Okay, the 4 parts of a computer, right? So here we have the 4 parts of a computer. You have input, you have CPU, you have memory, and you have output, okay? So what would you consider to be the input of a computer? What items, objects? Keyboard. Keyboard, yeah. A keyboard is definitely an input device for a computer. What kind of things can you enter into a computer or input into a computer? Letters, numbers, symbols. Anything else? Commands, because you can actually make those letters, numbers, and symbols into words and sentences and whatever, code, right? Microsoft Word is a program just like that. Are you aware of that? It is. It's a program just like that. It accepts different kinds of commands, different kinds of inputs. You put in something like actually, you type in actually into Word, and it recognizes it as a word, right? It'll actually even check the spelling, right? So it actually accepts input of words and other text inputs, and it does things to them, right? It allows you to organize them into a paper. It allows you to put them into columns. It allows you to put it into a text box and put it underneath a figure. It gives you functionality with text, essentially, and other similar things. So the input of a keyboard is important to a lot of programs, not just something like MATLAB or C++ or Python or some other programming language that we consider programming language, but also for Word and PowerPoint and the internet, Internet Explorer or Chrome or whatever thing you're using. Most of these things use the keyboard as one of their inputs. What's another input for the computer? Like you have a microphone.
We said that.
Oh, you said mouse? You're wearing masks, so I can't always hear what you're saying. That's what I hate about this whole mask. I can't hear words. So the mouse, the mouse is another one. Now the mouse is quite a bit different than the keyboard, at least in kind of the way we input it, but it's still simply just an input. There are programs that accept clicks, right? The mouse is connected to a program that tracks where the mouse is on the table and inputs that or translates that to somewhere on the screen. And then when you push a button on it, it says, oh, I'm supposed to do something at that point on the computer. And that point on the computer might be some kind of active area that says, sign me up for the Ch1 club or something, whatever it is. And input, what other input device was the next one? Microphone. Right. Yeah, you can use a microphone as an input device. Again, quite different, right? A microphone is more of an analog thing than a mouse or a computer. I mean, a mouse is analog because it connects the table to the screen. And the analog is between the table and the screen. The keyboard, not so. I mean, it's analog in that the letters on the keyboard connect to the letters on the page. That's not necessarily analog. It's more direct. There's not an analogous thing between the two. But the microphone is definitely analog. You're speaking, and it's going to transmit that into a wave of some kind. Eventually, we'll digitize it probably because we do most of the time when we put sound on things, we digitize that. And that's way beyond the scope of this class. But it's not way beyond it. Essentially, what digitizing means is that you take something that is analog, like my mouse is here, which means the pointer on the screen is here. That's very analog. And then assign it a number. That's what digitizing is. So instead of saying the mouse is here and the arrow is here, you say the mouse is here and those are the coordinates, 58, 62, 78, 35, which corresponds to a pixel on the screen from the left corner or whatever. So that's what digitizing does. It changes an analog relationship into a number that means something. Excuse me. So microphones, are very analog, but we often digitize the sound by changing the wave into a series of numbers that represent the wave. Any other input devices for computers? Let me show you the computer I used when I was a kid. I already mentioned it was called the Commodore PET. This is what it looked like. Oh, yeah. And it was like this big, weighed like 400 pounds. We had a really high-end version of it because my father worked for the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense, and he brought it home from work. And he was, he did work on like cruise missiles and stuff. So we had a really high-end version which looked more like this one. You know what this is right here? That is a cassette tape player. This thing, I think ours had 92 kilobytes of internal memory. 92 kilobytes of internal memory. That's a number that is so small in today's standards that we don't even use kilobytes. But kilobytes actually is a fair amount of memory for a computer as long as you don't have programs stacked on top of programs stacked on top of programs. The reason we need gazillions of bytes of memory on our computers is because there is a program that talks to the machine at the very bottom level of the computer that actually talks to the microchips. It's called the BIOS. There's actually more words than that, but that's good enough for this discussion. The BIOS on your computer talks with a operating system kernel, which for Windows is, I think they're still using DOS kernels. I think they're still using the DOS kernels. And then that is the thing that runs Windows, if you're in a Windows computer. And then Windows, of course, runs all of these other programs, like Word and all this other stuff. So each one of those programs has to talk down the chain to the next program down the chain before it can talk to the computer. But if you're just using that thing at the very bottom, just the BIOS, then you don't need any memory to store all the stuff of these other programs. So 92 kilobytes is not that bad if you're programming in the BIOS, which is what I was doing when I was 6 years old. I was programming in the BIOS. My dad was teaching us programming as a kid. That's what happens when you grow up in Silicon Valley and your dad's a nerd. Is you instead of getting like me and my oldest brother, we both loved sports. My younger sister did too, but we were like, it's like we have a family of 6, and I am the only one that liked sports, really. Like my oldest brother liked basketball, but he was terrible at it. And my younger sister loves sports, but more she just loves competing and beating people. So she never really got good at any sports. She just likes to play them and be really rough and try to beat people. She married a guy who's a really good athlete, so that makes it fun. But I love sports, and I love practicing, I love getting better. I'm not very good, but I'm better than your average nerd who has no ability. I have absolutely no athletic ability, but I'm better than the average nerd with no athletic ability. But I grew up doing nerdy things like programming instead of playing basketball. I wanted a basketball hoop. My dad brought this home. Eventually, we put up our own basketball. But we were programming on the BIOS, and we could actually build programs. You could actually do things. But if you wanted to do something extra, like we wanted to play a video game on this computer. We wanted to play Pong. You ever heard of that game? Pong was the rage in 1980. It was so cool. The ball going back and forth between 2 paddles. Anyway, and you had to use the keys on the keyboard to go up and down. There were 2 players. You had 1 paddle on the side, 1 paddle on the side, and the ball that went back and forth, which was like a 4-pixel dot. And you could move them up and down by, I had like which keys did I have? I had like L and O, and my brother had W and A or something. And we would go back and forth, back and forth, play Pong. But you couldn't just have it on the computer all the time because there wasn't enough memory. So we had Pong on a tape. The program was loaded onto a tape. And we put it in the tape deck, and we push play, and then we'd go eat breakfast. And 30 minutes later, we'd be done, and we'd come back, and we'd play Pong, because it was loaded onto the memory. And we'd play Pong, but as soon as you turned off the computer, Pong was gone, and you'd have to upload it again. That was computing in the 1980s. But the memory of this computer is that kilobyte thing, right? Bytes, essentially a byte is made of 8 characters, 8 numbers, essentially. You can think of it as. What's that?
0 and 1.
Yes, it is in binary. So computers can't count in tens. Computers can only count in zeros and ones. So if you want to express the number, well, let's look at it this way. Actually, I'll do it on the computer so everybody can see. Okay, new share. Let's go to my whiteboard. Okay. So in the number system we use, which is the decimal system, which means a 10-base system, we have these different placeholders like this, and you have a decimal point and more placeholders like this. And so this number right here is 1. And you can also have 2 or 3 or 4. You can put 10 different characters in this, right? Anything from 0 to 9. Because we have a 10 base system, 10 characters in each slot. And so if you want to do the number 2, you put a 2 right here. But in the binary system, we can only use 2 numbers. And why is that? Well, because computers are electronic. Electronic things only know two things. They know if they're on and they know if they're off. That's the only thing they know. There's no, I'm on 1, I'm on 2, I'm on 3. There's no 2 or 3 on. On is just on, and off is just off, and that's all computers know. Every computer chip ever made only knows 2 things: I'm on or I'm off, right? But you can get really complicated with it. You can make structures that become more complicated. So if you have a bunch of computer chips that all know on and off, then you can say, this is going to be my place where I tell myself I have 1 or none. So this will be 1 or 0. If it's on, it's a 1, and it means it's equal to 1. So this would be equal to 1. But if it's off, it's equal to 0, and we call it 0. So 0 is just 0, and 1 has a 1 right here. This next spot is going to be equal to 2 or 0. So if I want to write the number 2, I put a 1 here and a 0 here. This is the 2's place. This is the 1's place. And this number is the number 2. 1, 0 is the number 2. The next place we do a 4. So if I put a 1 here and a 1 here, what is this number?
That's 4.
If there's a 1 here and a 1 here,
6.
it's 6, because we add them. Because if we put a 1 here, this is the 1's place, and this is the 10's place. So if I put a 1 here, then I have 10. And if I put a 2 here, then I have 10 plus 2, which is 12. But here it's 4 plus 2 is 6. If I put a 1 here, I would have 4 plus 2 plus 1 is 7. And then what number do I put here?
8.
I put 8. So this is a 2-base system. This is a 10-base system. Every place is 10 times bigger. This is a 2-base system. Every place is 2 times bigger, right? It's the same number system as this, really, except it just has a different base. We still use the same ideas. And up here, instead of having 1 through 9 or 0 through 9 in this spot, we have 0 through 1. That's all we get, right? So with 8 of these things, if you have 8 places, let's not do it that way. If you have 8 spots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you have 8 spots, then you have 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, and 256. And you can do any number between, I think it's 0 and 300 something. I don't remember what it is. But you can do a bunch of numbers. And those 8 spaces are called a byte. Okay? And then you can make it bigger. You can make it 16. With 16, you can go way higher. With 32, you can go way higher. With 64, you can go way higher. This computer that I've got right here is a 64-bit computer. Each one of these is a bit. So it's a 64-bit computer. At 64 bits per byte, it can use huge numbers, it can do huge calculations. Most of your new high-end computers are 64-bit computers. But if you go to a high-end supercomputer, you can get to 128, 256-bit computers that are really powerful because they can deal with really big numbers, right? So that's just an aside to tell you how computers deal with things. And if you have bytes and bits, that tells you how much your computer can hold, how much memory it has, how much capacity it has to deal with things. And this one had, 92. Your computer's now in your pocket, your cell phone has way more. And that's just memory. Let's go back to this one more time. What time is it? Okay. So we have all these inputs, and we've talked about memory a little bit. But what's the difference between memory and CPU? Does anybody know what a CPU is? Central processing unit. Right? You know what that is? What it does? Yeah, it's kind of like the brain of the computer. Although a brain brain is so much more complicated than a computer that I prefer not to use that term, because the brain is independent. The brain can do what it does without you telling it to do, right? When you woke up this morning, did you have to tell yourself, open my eyes? Did you? No. Did you have to tell yourself when you went downstairs, put that foot down 8 inches, put that? You didn't, right? Because the brain is autonomous. The brain is much, much more than a computer. And computers are becoming a little bit more autonomous, but to be completely honest with you, they're about as smart as your average spider. That's about how smart computers are. And they're not likely to get much smarter. It's just not likely. Possible, but not likely. The brain is so much more, it works very differently than a computer. So it is kind of the brain of a computer, but it's a really, really, really little small brain, right? The CPU, I like to think of it more as like a cheese blender, right? Where you put cheese on the top and you crank this thing and you get shredded cheese on the top. Or something, you know, something that's more analogous to a machine that is quite simple, that does very simple tasks. Because the CPU is very much that way. It's something that does very simple tasks, but it can do a lot of them and it can do them very quickly. That's the advantage it has. That's one advantage that it has over the brain, because you can design a CPU, or you can tell a CPU to do something that our brain cannot do very quickly. We can't do very many. But this CPU can do a lot of that in a quicker, very simple thing, but it can crank them out just like nothing. So that's the CPU. It's the thing that does the work in the machine. The memory is where you store things that it's done, where you store things that it's going to do things to, right? So stuff goes back and forth between the CPU and the memory all the time, constant, back and forth. What kinds of memory do we have in computers? RAM. Anyone know what that stands for? Yeah, random access memory. Random access memory means that it's like having a big. It's like having a file cabinet or something, and you can immediately grab something out of it just really quickly. Just boom, 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 boom. And the purpose of RAM is to be able to speed up the computer. So the RAM is not being used constantly. When you turn off the computer, the RAM is erased. The RAM, it allows you to take things and put them in a place that's really easy to grab things from, like a file next to your desk, as opposed to having to go to the library and look it up in a book somewhere, right? So you have libraries, and then you have this file next to your desk. File next to your desk, easy access, quick, right there, convenient. The library, ask the librarian for something, all this stuff. So what would be the library inside of a computer? Yeah, so your hard drive, right? And the hard drive used to be disks almost all the time, and some of them still are because they're still cheaper. And so the disk memory, you'd have to, the disk would actually spin up and hear it going, and then you'd have to wait for it to find things and all that stuff. And they got faster and faster over time, but they're still much slower than random access. And random access memory is expensive and it's super fast. Usually it has to be cooled. I mean, random access memory gets hot because of all the stuff that it's doing all the time. At least in high power computers, it has to be cooled because it's working so fast. Whereas this, hard drives and other types of memory, like USB things, USB key drives or whatever, and SD cards and things like this, all kinds of memory options. Tape drives, if you were in the 80s, right? You ever see the old movies where they have the big room full of all the tape drives? Yeah. That was my dad's generation. And then you have output. So what kind of output options do you have on the computer? What kind of outputs? So monitor, yeah, printer, speaker, headphone. There you go. There are some objects that are actually both memory, that they're actually memory input and output devices, like USB drives, right? The USB drive can be an output device You can output to it, and then you can take it out and take it somewhere else. Right? You can also send things to the internet. The internet is now. You can send things to other computers. Other computers can work. You can have all kinds of things connected to your computer, like a 3D printer. That 3D printer right there was made in a garage in Brooklyn, New York. And the company now is a multi-billion-dollar company. I'm trying to buy one of their new printers from their state-of-the-art factory. It's a much different looking printer. But that's an output device. You know, I can design something here on this computer and send it to that and print it in plastic and good to go. So yeah, the reason why I spend so much time talking about this is it's important to kind of beat this into our heads that this is how a computer works. Because when you're dealing with Microsoft Word, you almost never have to really think about it. You just, get in there and start typing. The only time you ever have to think about it is when they say, well, do you want to open a file? And then you say, oh yeah, that file's on my thumb drive. And then you have to plug in your thumb drive and go grab that file. And then you can change it, right? But we don't really think about it much. You don't think about the fact that the data is one place, where the data is changed is another place, the output is another place, and the input is another thing. All these things work together. But when you're working with MATLAB or Python or whatever you're working with, programs, you actually have to tell the program while you're doing the code where to get things from. You have to make sure that when you're trying to access things during your program, that those things are in the right place, because you run your program and it'll show, it will throw up all your work that you've done. It'll say there's error, this isn't working, this is working. And you're like, oh, my code's terrible. Well, really, this file is just in the wrong place, or it's the wrong name or something. You have to actually tell the computer where things are, where they're coming from, where they're going to, and it has to be pretty explicit, because we're at a lower level of code. The lower level, remember I said these codes have levels. You have this high level code where you don't have to think about it much, Microsoft Word, that kind of stuff. Low level code, MATLAB is a couple levels down from there. And you have to tell the computer more things. You're in charge more when you get down to these lower levels. So you have to be very particular and remember that these things have to be told to the code. So I've gone way too long and I've talked way too much, and I'm sure you guys are all just rolling your eyes and hoping that this is not the way the class is going to go the whole time. It's not, I promise. This first day is a lot of talking. Mostly we'll just be doing code. But we are going to take a little bit of a break, and then we're going to come back and actually open up MATLAB and kind of give you the 30-cent tour of MATLAB to get you started. So go ahead and go get a drink, take a break, whatever you want to do. I'm going to stop talking so I have a voice. And we'll see you in about 5 minutes, about 10 to noon or something. 10 to 10. Yes.
I don't think that would be
It doesn't. None of these do yet. But if you want to use them in class, I will put them. Okay. I'm just loading. All these computers are pretty new, so I haven't really put anything on. Okay. But if you want to use them in class, I will do it. I'm assuming you're.
I already downloaded it. Is this like
my laptop actually last semester broke, but my mom ordered me a new one. It
Okay.
just hasn't gotten here yet.
Okay.
So.
What we'll do is I've got a couple of laptops that I can loan out, and so I will bring one tomorrow, not tomorrow, next week, and then you can take it home for as long as you need to until you get it ready. Or you could check one out from the library, but I don't think they'll let me load onto the ones in the library anymore. They used to, but I've got one at home that has MATLAB loaded already, and I'll let you take that one. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Is this like the layout?
Yep. That's the one. Wednesdays are pretty brutal.
Yeah.
9 to noon. 1 to 3:30. One of the best cures for a throat that's been talking too much. It's really good homemade salsa and chips. Lots of salt. A little water. Feel that now. All right, Logan, you back with us?
Yeah.
All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump into MATLAB here. And what we're going to do today is mostly just show you the environment that you're working in MATLAB and some pretty simple, basic things. Trying to remember what they cover in chapter 1. Nothing much really. This when you're working in MATLAB or any other programming you're doing, what you're really doing is just making a list of commands, a list of code, in other words, right? And that list can usually be made in any kind of program. You can make it in Microsoft Word if you wanted to, because all it is it's a language it's a specific language that is used, but the program, all it needs to do is see that text somehow. In most programming languages, you want to try to save that list of commands as a particular type of file. So writing it in Word doesn't necessarily work because you can't just save a Word file as any old kind of file usually. Although in Word you can save things as a text file. In a text file, all that does is just saves the actual text so that any computer can recognize it. And so a text file will work usually. In MATLAB, I mean, just about every programming language has its own particular type of text file that it recognizes as a file that was written for this program. And in MATLAB, it's called the .m file. So the extension is .m instead of .txt or .wr, what's the word? Doc, right? Docx or whatever you know. .docx or whatever, PDF. For MATLAB, it's .m, just the M, the letter M. And the .m file is just a text file that MATLAB recognizes as something that will be full of code for MATLAB. There's nothing special about it besides that. And so just about all the files that you make and turn in for this class will be that kind of file. Not all of them, but many of them. There are actually a few other files that MATLAB recognizes. There are data files and matrix files and other kind of files, but mostly we'll be dealing with .m files. almost all programming languages also have an environment that you can program. Some people who do computer programming will just write their stuff in a text file, and that's fine. And then they'll just import it into their program and run it, and compile it and run it, whatever else. And that's fine. Compiling is something that that you do in some programming languages where you have to convert that text file into something that the program, or you have to kind of work it into the program so that the program knows how to run. MATLAB doesn't have any such thing. You don't have to compile your programs. It just reads the end file and goes, which is useful because compiling can take a lot of time, effort, and can be painful. For other programming languages, there is not an environment that's designed specifically by the programming designers. I'm learning to program in Python right now for a class I'm taking at UNL. And Python is a programming language that is maintained by a community. It's kind of like Wikipedia. It's a program of a bunch of people that contribute, and they all change it all the time and fix it and make it better and whatever else. And there are advantages to it. But when you go to use Python, you have to create it. You have to either create an environment that you're going to use it in, or just write all your code in a text file and just run it. Or you have to use somebody else's created environment. And there are many of them out there. There are hundreds of them. You can kind of pick the environment you're going to write your program. Why would you want an environment to write your program? Because coding sucks. Go ahead. What do you think?
Well, because first of all, just a little mistake in code.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. You need like environment.
One little misplaced colon or comma or some stupid capital letter, and your code's screwed up. But if you're just writing in a text file, you don't notice that you made a mistake. These environments are usually made so that they're checking the code for you, or there's a way to check the code for you very easily. And they're also made so that it's easy to run the code, easy to make the code go. So it's essentially just it's a way of lifting up your code and connecting it to the language, so that it's easier to write your code. The advantage that MATLAB has is that MATLAB creates both the environment and the code, and they don't let anybody in. Nobody's allowed to come in and just change MATLAB. MATLAB is run by a company. The advantage to that, of course, is stability. You have, if the company knows what they're doing and they're good at it, and MathWorks is, they know what they're doing and they're good at it, then the code will be stable. You won't have to worry about problems. It'll just work. And that's more than anything, that's the reason I think that engineers like MATLAB, is because it works. It's expensive if you buy it as a company, tens of thousands of dollars, but it's worth it. And so that's why they stay around as a company. Some engineers are kind of like purists. They're like, I want the code that's been worked on by all these people all over the world. And that's fine. It has its advantages too. So many more things you can do with it because so many more people are working on it. But I hate that because I'm not very good at computer coding. I know how to code. I know MATLAB. I know these things, but I just hate doing it. It makes my head ache. So I want something that's going to be easy to work with and work all the time. So anyway, this particular environment has a window here called the command window. Most environments have something like that. It's not always called the command window. Then inside the command window, you can just type things in and try them out. That's what it's for. It's just kind of try something out. So, you try out this 1 + 2, not equals 2, 1 + 2, right? And that's something that MATLAB knows how to do. So it does it, right? Simple. You can also do something like, I think my brain's pulling a blank from somewhere. If I could remember the command for it, you could actually tell the computer to ask you a question and wait for a reply. And I can't remember the code for it really quick, but it's only like 1 or 2 lines of code, and you can run that as well. I mean, it's really easy to just type things in the command window, but the command window is actually using the RAM. So remember the random access memory. It's that memory that only is there when you need it, and then you grab something from it, and then it doesn't remember things for very long necessarily. This is not code that you're going to be able to call back up again. So you don't want to write 25 lines of code in the command window and then expect to be able to use it. Okay? There are ways to get stuff back in the command window. Like I can push the up arrow on my keyboard and it tells me the last command that I typed in there. And then I can run it again. But if you've got 25 lines of code in there and you're trying to change things every time, it might get a little bit, that might get cumbersome, make a mess. The command window, you can also get rid of things. You can, erase what you've done in there and start over with a nice clean slate. But this is essentially kind of like your place for trying things out. It's like your palette. Painters have that little thing that has a little paint on it. And on that palette, they try out colors. They mix colors and try things out a little bit. They might even do a little painting on their palette just before they put it up on their canvas. So this is kind of like your palette. Try things out. See if it works. Right? We're missing one of the windows. I'm going to go up here to window. Nope. I'm going to go to, I think you can hit preferences here, or you can go to preferences here, I believe, either way. And you can choose. Let's see here. Command history, command window. Not sure I remember where to do this. But there is a way to open up some different windows in here. And we definitely want to remember how to do that. So let's do, this. So you can adjust a lot of things in here to kind of fit your own, here it is, I think, under environment. Yeah. So in the environment here, I'm showing the current folder, workspace, panel titles, tool strip. I actually would like to show, I am showing that already. That's the workspace. Since I've been working in Python, I'm remembering things differently. But this is actually the default layout. You can actually switch it so it puts it in columns. Some people like it this way. It's kind of up to you how you want to do the layout. I would recommend that you do show all three of these things: the current folder, the command window, and the workspace. And why is that? Because you can actually create things in MATLAB. I'm going to create what's called a variable in MATLAB. I'm going to call the variable variable. You can call it anything you want. There are some names that you can't use because MATLAB uses them for other things. Or a better way to say that there are things that you shouldn't use because MATLAB uses them for other things, and you will confuse MATLAB if you start naming things that are being used by MATLAB. But I'm going to call it variable underscore Jared. One of the rules for variables is that you cannot use a space in your variable. You also cannot use any symbols. You can only use letters and numbers. And your variable has to start with a letter. And they are case sensitive. So this would be different if I put a little j. So I'm calling this variable Jared, and I'm going to give it a value of 56. Let me hit enter. And over here, I've now created this thing called variable Jared, and it's equal to 56. Now I can actually use that variable, and I can do something with it. I can do variable Jared plus 2, and it tells me it's equal to 58. So that's creating a variable. And this now is being stored more permanently. This is now on this is probably been stored on the hard drive. At least, at the very least, it's stored more permanently on the RAM. But you can definitely assign it to the hard drive. It's not hard to do that. You can actually put it on the hard drive for you. Over here, we have this current folder thing, and it's telling me where I'm at. It's telling me that I'm in the user's Jared Daily documents under the MATLAB documents. And anything that I save or anything that I write to the hard drive will show up here, including this variable if I wanted to write it to you. And we'll learn how to do that later. So the workspace technically is the RAM, but if you've actually got things saved in here, then it's told the MATLAB has told the RAM to hold on to it and to not erase it. So it's kind of in between the RAM and a more permanent it's like a semi-permanent save on the RAM. This, so anything that gets saved here will be to your hard drive. Anything that shows up here. Okay, so command window, workspace, current folder. Input, right? Short-term memory, long-term memory. Now, if I press this up here, this new script button, it's going to create a new window here, an editor window. And that's the one I was looking for, but I remembered that it only opens it if you actually have a script open. So now I have an editor window open, and I can start typing things in here, and you can see it's untitled. So let's put in here, my nickname is Jed, because those are my initials. I'm going to say Jed equals my current age. I just turned, what year is it? Just turned 47 last week. So I'm going to put in there Jed equals 47. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm going to close this. And when I close it, it's going to ask me to save it, just like you save anything on a computer. So guess where this is going? This is going to the hard drive. So if I go ahead and save this, it's going to ask me what to name it, and I can name it something if I want to. I can call it Jed1 or whatever. And it's going to save it in MATLAB, and I can actually look at where the files are going. It's going MATLAB from documents, and that's from users and everything else. And I can save that, and look, it shows up in my workspace. Now I can actually say from the command window, I can say Jed1. I can just type that in there, Jed1, and hit enter. And it will run the code that's in that file. All right. This is the kind of file that you're going to be making each week when you're participating. When you sit down in class, you're going to open up a new script. And if you open up multiple scripts, it'll just put more in, it'll put more of them up here. You can actually have, hundreds of them open if you want to. And then you're going to title it right away. You can go up here to save and put the arrow button, hit the save as button. And you'll save it as, well, you put your name there, put my name, Jared. And you can do just like that, Jared, or you can do an underscore. And then you can maybe do an underscore or not, whatever you want to. Chapter 1, participation, something like that, right? I think I give some instructions in the homework. Make sure there's no spaces in there on how to name it. But anyway, that's kind of what you can do. And then you'll save that. And then you'll start doing whatever we're doing that day. You'll essentially copy the code that I'm doing. And then anything else that you want to do. If you find something interesting, you go ahead and do that for a while, then get back into what we're doing, whatever. And you'll just have line after line after line after line of code. And I'm not going to run it necessarily. I'm going to look at it and see if you've actually done it. It's not like a program. It's just to show me that you've been doing what we've been doing in class. It also gives you a chance to see what's going on, to see how it's working. And then during class, if you want to run this file, you can. Or you can type things in the command window and see how they run, and then just copy them up to here. So if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to define this variable Jared, wherever I did that right there, define this variable down here, and you're like, oh, that's part of my participation. Then you just hit copy on that, put it up here and copy it into here and go to the next one. I hit a couple. I like to put space in between my lines of code just because it's easier for me to read it. You'll find that the more you have bunched together in code, it's messy. This is one of those style points, right? Style and code, you definitely want it to be readable, especially when you're first learning how to code. As you get better at it, you tend to try to make more room on the page, so you start grouping them together. But I like to use it. So that is that is the kind of thing that you'll be doing each week as we start classes. Another thing that when you open up anytime you open up a script file, I recommend that you give us some information. One of the things that you can do in MATLAB and just about any programming language is you can put a thing in here that's called a comment line. Okay? Comment lines are lines in your code that will not be read by the code. They will just be ignored. And in every programming language, it's a little bit different how you make the comment line. Some of them are very similar. But for MATLAB and C++ and Python and several others, you just put this % sign in there. I usually put a few of them in. You can just do one. But I do a few just because it sets the comment apart, and so it really makes it off. And then you can go in here and say, this is my participation file for chapter 2 or whatever, and then you're good to go. And you can even put your name in here, you put the date, whatever you want. Every line will need some of this stuff. You can also just type in here, say, I really hate making code, but teacher says I have to, so on and so forth. You know, just keep coding, you know, keep writing here. And look, and right now it's highlighting things that MATLAB understands, and it's putting in red things that MATLAB has no idea what you're doing. Then you can actually go back and highlight all this stuff, and you can actually tell the computer to comment it by going up here and pressing this button, and it just comment lines both ways for you. You can also turn on multiple line comments, I think, and then start typing, and it'll just comment every line that you type until you turn that off. There are different ways to do that. But I definitely recommend that at the beginning of every file, especially when you get in, eventually we'll be making M files like this that are actual pieces, that are actual programs. So that when you run them, it makes the computer do things like it asks questions, or it says, you know, type your favorite kind of ice cream, and then you type in your favorite kind of ice cream, and it gives you a price and tells you, you know, do you want to ask you if you want a banana with that or whatever. You can write a program like this that tells you, that gives you your favorite ice cream sundae or something. And when you ran that piece of program, that's what it did. At the beginning of that program, you might want to put a little bit of comment that says, this is what this program does, right? Because it may not be obvious from the title, everything that it does, unless your title is 8 pages long. And you definitely don't want them. So it's a good way to explain things. It's also a good way to remember what you're doing on each line. Some people like to write a line of code like this, where you put a comment line right after it, and you say, I am assigning the variable, whatever, you know, to the values to 56. I don't want to type that out. I'm not so that you know what that line of code does. This is an obvious line of code, I think, once you get used to code, once you get used to writing code. But some functions are not. There are functions out there, there's the fprintf function, for example. In MATLAB, if you write fprintf, MATLAB understands that means something to it, and you can enter something into parentheses here, and that's a whole function that MATLAB does something with, and it goes and does things. And if you don't remember what fprintf does, then in your code here you can write, oh, fprintf actually prints a file to I don't know why I thought fprintf, but it does whatever it does, right? You can write it up. And so annotating your code is quite important. It's a very good style, a very good way to do code, so that you can go back and know what you did. Somebody else can read your code and know what you did. And I give style points to people who write in comments. I don't want a paragraph every other line, but especially comments on things that are not obvious what they do. If you're not sure you can remember what it does, or if you're not sure what it does, make sure you put a comment on it, so that you can go back and remember, or go back and fix it, or whatever. If you've got a mistake in your code, that's a good place to put a comment on. I don't know why the code messed up here. So that when you come back to it the next day, you can go back and say, that's the part I was working on. That's the part that sucks, right? So these are the different things that you can do as you're starting up, making your first script files, your first participation files. These are the kinds of things you need to know. Notice that when the editor opens this up, you can actually open this up in like text edit or whatever, you know, text opening file you have. And it will just open like a text file, just line the text. But when you open it up here in the editor in MATLAB, it shows the number lines, the numbers of each line here. Because as you go through the code, MATLAB will tell you in line 6 there's this problem. And so you just go to line 6, I can check that problem. Trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about, or we can be done for the day. I think we can probably be done for the day. we will learn a lot more about the other tabs up here and other things that pop up in here as we go through MATLAB. Well, one other thing I'll show you, the one other little function here I'll show you is the run button. When you're inside of your editor window, you can actually run this, and this does two things. The first thing that it does is it saves the file. So it'll save whatever you've done since the last time you saved it. And then it'll actually run the file in the window here. So all it did is reassign the variable down here. Actually, this part is not done yet, so I have to run this first. So I didn't put anything into fprintf, so it doesn't know what I want to do. Then I go up here and run it, and it will run down here. So here's the file that it's running, Jared Daly, Chapter 1 participation. This is what it did, and it just reassigned the variable. If I go up here and I put a semicolon here, that changes things a little bit. Now, if I run this file, it just shows me that I've run the file. It didn't actually print this out into the command line. And that's because MATLAB knows that when you put a semicolon after a line, it knows not to print anything into the command line. Simple enough. So, however, if I make something in this, if I do variable Jared, for example, if I put a second line of code in here, right here, and I say variable Jared equals, and I just say variable Jared plus, plus 2, right? And then I run that code. Then it gives me an answer. So this is the file that it ran, and it gives me an answer equals 58. Answer is the random variable, or it's not a random, but it's a generic variable that MATLAB creates if you don't give it a name. If I name this add or something like that, add jed equals this, then it will assign it to it'll assign it to a variable. It'll assign it to the variable add jed, and that's 58, add jed equals 58. And if I put the semicolon there, it won't print it to the screen. So just a few things, the basic things to start off with, and how this environment interacts with MATLAB and interacts with the user. You will get a lot of experience doing this, and we will meet next Wednesday. I would like you to go ahead and take a look at the book, start reading through it a little bit just to get a feel for it. Try to use MATLAB to do your homework. You can do it. It's a great calculator. Try it out a little bit here. It can do just about it. It can do any mathematics that any of you are doing, I guarantee. In fact, usually we teach this in freshman year to engineering students and physics students, so that when they get into Calc 3 and Calc 4, they can use this to do a lot of their work and not have to use a calculator, because calculators are really cumbersome. But that's all I have for you today. So we're going to cut you loose. Thank you all for coming. Oh, I should mention one more thing that I didn't mention. The reason that we do this 3-hour class on Wednesdays is because the best way to learn programming is to do a lot of it at once. And so we'll do a lot of it once on Wednesdays, and then you'll do your programming assignment through the week. But the best way to learn, it's the same as a language. Have any of you ever learned a language before? Did they ever talk about total immersion? No, because that's the way that they teach people, like in the military. If you're going into the military and you're learning, you need to learn a language, let's say that you're going to Serbia, and you have to learn Serbian, it's a tough language. You use a completely different alphabet. Everything's very different about Serbian than English. So what they do to teach you Serbian is they send you to California, to Monterey, and they put you in a school for 2 months where you will speak no English from day one. You walk in that building, and you're not allowed to speak English. They start teaching you Serbian, you're not allowed to speak until you can speak in Serbian. And that's how they do it. And in 2 months, you will come out of there conversing in Serbian. It works. It is undeniable. They have taught so many languages this way. And this is the way that languages are taught all over the world now, because that model works so well. So computer languages are no different. We want you immersed in the language as much as possible. So 3 hours a week, and then you can go off for your assignment. 3 hours a week, go off for your assignment. In case you're wondering why the 3 hours. It will go by faster than we're actually programming. I apologize for the first day, but it's just necessary. So we'll see you next time. Have a good week. If you have any questions, feel free to message me, email me, whatever. See you later. So I assume the reason that you're here in North Platte from across the country is because you're playing basketball. Right? So, so what position do you play? Enjoy your season. I know you're getting started. And are you playing one of the big men on the team?
Yeah, I'm playing all forward.
Excellent. I grew up loving basketball so much and wanted to play. I played constantly. I would drive my car off, somewhere and just find people playing out there. Just play all day long. And then I discovered volleyball. I always loved volleyball, but Northern California doesn't have very many men's volleyball. When I went to school, I went to Brigham Young University where they had an incredible men's volleyball team. Man, I fell in love with volleyball over there, so I kind of had to start picking and choosing. I still play a lot of basketball, but not as much. But I still play some basketball. The volleyball became my major sport. They play a lot of volleyball in Serbia.
Yeah,
they're very good. Very
good.
Yes. Very good. But we don't play as much here. I want men to play more. If either of you guys want to learn volleyball after season, we play every Monday and Thursday. I love teaching basketball. Did you play much in Serbia?
Volleyball? Yeah. Only kind of.
Just like
Just a little.
Yeah, they have good volleyball players in Serbia. Serbia is a small country, but a lot of good athletes come out of Serbia. It's kind of crazy.
First in tennis, basketball,
Yeah.
second in Olympics, volleyball also, like first in the world.
Great athletes come out of there. How does that happen? You have a small country. So many athletes.
I don't know. That's so fact.
It's great. I love it. I love watching Luka Doncic play. He's super fun to watch. See you later. Have a good one. Thanks for coming out. Yes.
So basically before the end of last year, my rose computer laptop was like even fine. So I had my desktop and I don't have a laptop.
So do you want to use one of these computers in class?
I can.
What I'll do is I'll set up at least 2 or 3 of these because it seems like there are 2 or 3 that want to use them with MATLAB, and then you can use these in class and use your desktop at home. And that'll be fine. I only have 1 extra laptop.
Yeah.
Already committed to somebody else. I got rid of all my other laptops. I might have another one, but I wanted somebody, but we might not use it anymore. But
I'll imagine by the end of this month there's going to be real.
okay, sounds good. Well, I'll set those up. Yes, sir.
AutoCAD,
I'm sorry.
the AutoCAD.
Oh, right. What are your questions about AutoCAD?
Well, I was having issues with that one where it was drawing that slanted with the hole in the center in a solid, and then the subtract for that gear.
You want to get your computer out and look at it real quick? Or?
I only have the desktop. I don't
Oh,
have a
right.
laptop strong
You need a
enough.
desktop.
I've got the file at least for the subtract one for the gear
Okay,
that I was working on.
I'll tell you what. I will set up AutoCAD on that computer too, and next week we'll sit down with that computer and take a look at it.
All right, yeah.
Because
so
I'll be completely honest with you. I'm teaching AutoCAD because that's what UNL wants me to teach. I never actually learned AutoCAD myself, so I'm kind of learning it along with the students. I learned a program that kind of exists. It has a different name now, but it was called Pro Engineer. And then I've also learned how to use like SketchUp, like Google or whatever. But that's completely useless for this stuff. It's so far beyond SketchUp. So what we'll do is we'll sit down together and see if we can figure it out. There's
Alright.
no real rush on it unless you're just really like anxious to get it done, because that
Yes.
class can be,
Somewhat, yes, because February I start the history class.
okay, yeah, we can,
And
we
then
can
I've
go
got-
through it.
This one, which doesn't seem like it's gonna be too bad as
Okay.
like the social problem class.
So I'll go ahead and set up the AutoCAD on that computer. We can do it in my office. I have AutoCAD on my office because that's how I'm looking at your assignments. But my office is kind of cramped, so it's not very comfortable to sit down and work on things.
I've got a laptop, but none of them can really run any programs because they don't have enough RAM.
Yeah, the bare bones ones. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'll set it up on there and we'll be able to do it next week. We'll sit down and spend some time.
Alright, yeah, I'm gonna look into the laptop since I didn't. Last time I was in college, it wasn't really required to have one.
Okay, so when I started college in 1992, there weren't laptops.
No.
Nobody had a laptop. It didn't exist. Apple had a portable computer. It came in a briefcase. My dad had it. It was like this big. It was the portable computer. The computer was huge, and you folded up the screen. It was like this big. Not color, it was like the black on, it was the green on black kind of stuff.
Yeah, I remember the old.
Oh yeah, it was
I
terrible.
think it was the Macintosh.
Yeah.
The ones with the apple right in the center.
That's what this one was. This one was a Macintosh portable. It was the first laptop. You had to have a big lap.
Kind of like the first cell phone was a backpack. But
Yeah,
you
my
had
dad
to
had
stick-
those too. My dad had a suitcase cell phone where you opened it up and there was a receiver that came off with a wire, and an antenna that came like 20 feet in the air. Yeah, we had all that stuff. But yeah, I totally get it. But we'll set that up and have it running, and then we'll work on that and crank it out for you. So,
All right.
no problem.
All right. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too.
How classes go? How classes go?
Doing well. So officially,